Hey everyone, Sebastian here, back again with another question from Bluebook Test 1, Reading and Writing Module 1, this time question 21. There are a lot of ones in there, but another grammar question. I think it might be the last one in this unit or this module, so let's make it a good one. During the English neoclassical period, 1660 to 1789, many writers imitated the epic poetry and satires of ancient Greece and Rome. They were not the first in England to adopt the literary modes of classical blank. Some of the most prominent figures of the earlier Renaissance period were also influenced by ancient Greek and Roman literature. Okay, this is a tough one, and it's one that's tough for a lot of people, and it's going to come up again and again and again. So pay attention because you really want to get this one down. It will make your life a lot easier when it comes to the SAT. And that's what it's about on this, right? That's what I'm here for. So let's try it. Which choice completes the text but conforms to the conventions of standard English? Antiquity, comma, however. Antiquity, however, comma. Antiquity, comma, however, semicolon. Antiquity, semicolon, however, comma. So we have the same words. The punctuation's a little different. It's a boundaries question, right? So with a boundaries question, we want to think about, first of all, are we doing, like, is the verb getting displaced from the noun? Are there independent clauses and so on? So let's not focus on the first sentence, right? We normally leave those to the side and we focus on the part with the blank, and then if we need that one, we'll come back to it. In this one, we're gonna need it, but we're gonna leave it alone for now. They were not the first in England to adopt the literary modes of classical antiquity. However, some of the most prominent figures of the earlier Renaissance periods were also influenced by ancient Greek and Roman literature. So here you want to, since the words are the same, plug it in and think about the sound of it, right? And then we want to think, where are the independent clauses? Where are the dependent clauses? So independent clauses here, they were not the first in England to adopt the literary modes. So they were, that's already we're set, right? That is an independent clause. However, some of the most prominent figures of the earlier Renaissance period were also influenced. So these people were influenced, so that's another independent clause. And we're not connecting with with a fanboys, so we have to connect with a period, a colon, or a semicolon, or maybe an em dash. Probably not likely. We don't have an em dash, we don't have a period, we don't have a colon. We only have semicolons and commas. So we're going to need one of those semicolon answers. So we can eliminate A and B. And now let's think about what the difference is between C and D, right? We're comparing answer choices here. We're not making up our own. Otherwise, I would have maybe put a period or something. I wouldn't have even put however there, but we'll get to that. So we have a choice of comma, however, semicolon, and semicolon, however, comma. And how do we choose where to put the semicolon? Does it go before or after the however? And the key is in the function of however, right? However is pivoting us, right? So it's taking us from, we're going on one stream of thought and then we're turning a bit. So where does the turn happen? We want to think, is it happening between the first part, right? So like the first, whoops. So in the first sentence to the first part of the second sentence? Or is it happening between the first part of the second sentence and the second part of the second sentence? Because however is always in the second part of the pivot. So it's the pivot's happening in the first part, between the first and the second part. We would have the however be in that first part of the second sentence. So it would become before the semicolon. But if the pivot is happening between the first part of the second sentence and the second part of the second sentence, we would have however go in the second part of the second sentence, and that would make it be after the semicolon, right? So where's the pivot happening? When are we changing? During the English neoclassical period, many writers imitated the epic poetry and satires of ancient Greece and Rome. They were not the first in England to adopt the literary modes of classical antiquity, however. Some of the most prominent figures of the earlier Renaissance period were also influenced by ancient Greek and Roman literature. Okay, so the first part is saying that these English neoclassical people started imitating them. And then they're saying, but they weren't the first. Okay, so just even the way I'm rephrasing it by saying they weren't the first, but they weren't the first, that shows that the pivot's happening between the first sentence and the second sentence. So it should be, however, it goes before the semicolon because it's showing the transition between the first part of the second sentence and the first sentence, not between the first part of the second sentence and the second part of the second sentence, right? So, and the thing that makes this one hard is normally you and I, if we use however, when we use however, I like to put it at the beginning of the sentence, not at the end of a part, right? So I would have said, during the English neoclassical period, many writers imitated the epic poetry and satires of ancient Greece and Rome. However, they were not the first in England to adopt. So I would put however right here, right? They're putting it at the end. And grammatically, that's fine. I think it sounds terrible. I wouldn't do that. But grammatically, they do it like that to trick us. They're trying to trick us. They're trying to get us down, but we're not going to let them, right? We're going to see that however should go before the semicolon, and it's going to be C. And if you doubt that the first part and the second part has this pivot, you know there has to be a pivot, right? Because however is one of the choices. And then you have to think, well, is there the pivot between the first part of the second sentence and the second part? But those really flow smoothly, right? Because we're saying they're not the first in England to adopt the literary modes. And then it says some of the most prominent figures of the earlier period were also doing this. So that's a really smooth, there's no real change there. So we know that the pivot has to happen between the first sentence and the first part of the second sentence. I feel like I've said first and second, second, first so many times in this, but I think you got this. If you have questions on this one, let me know. I'm sure a lot of people have questions on this. But once you see this and you start thinking about however it can be moved around and how you have to think about it as being in the second part of the pivot, then it'll start making sense to you. So I hope this helped you, and I hope it is sunny where you are. And if it's raining, I hope the rain is cleaning your windows and watering your plants. Bye.